Right now on Upfront.
Supreme Court showdown.
It is not a lie.
You have the transcript.
The fiery debate.
It is because Elon Schimmel is trying to buy this race.
Susan Crawford, Brad Schimmel, the only face-to-face ahead of the April 1st election. Early voting just days away. Now the fallout.
A tyranny of four people making all the decisions.
All 7 Supreme Court justices in attendance.
Let's not be in fantasy land. This is the way that campaigns are run now.
Control of the state's high court at stake. Protests outside the debate hall.
This Sunday, inside the contentious debate, all the reaction and the new analysis. Republican strategist Bill McCoshen, Democrat Joe Zepecki with us just moments away.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. A fiery and contentious state Supreme Court debate now just 48 hours out from the start of early voting. Susan Crawford and Brad Schimmel sparring for 60 minutes straight, their only debate ahead of the April 1st election. A remarkable moment, all 7 sitting Supreme Court justices in attendance.
The post-debate spin room filled, protests outside, the sitting justices taking their political sides, all with control of the state's high court at stake.
Thank you guys for coming. I'm going to stay seated.
And just like that, we were off.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome.
The first and only Supreme Court debate between Susan Crawford, the liberal candidate backed by Democrats, and Brad Schimmel, the conservative backed by Republicans. Fiery back and forth on their records, those TV ads, and supporters.
He is somebody who has blamed victims, said things like with child sexual assaults that the child was responsible because she went to a party, or
That's a lie.
It is not a lie.
You have the transcript.
It was a first date situation.
My opponent just revealed the problem in her judgment, that in weighing all the factors, giving the minimum amount of time to a dangerous sex offender weighs higher than protecting the community. That's what she just revealed to you.
That is not what I said.
And she has not found one case.
The court requires you to order the sentence.
Go ahead.
The sentence necessary to protect the community, and that's what I have done. I just wanted to correct that. And he has a very active imagination about this call.
But you don't dispute the 50%.
I am speaking, please.
Oh, okay.
I mentioned that I have never been.
But you don't dispute that nearly 50% of your donors don't live in this state.
You know, I have support from all over the country, and it is because Elon Schimmel is trying to buy this race, and people are very upset about that.
All 7 current Supreme Court justices watching along, a front row seat sitting in the order they appear on the bench. As on stage, Crawford and Schimmel feud over what's again become the most expensive court race in the nation's history. With Politics, our editorial partner tallying a record $59 million dropped as of this past week. Judge Schimmel, do you embrace the endorsement of Elon Musk?
I got in this race over 15 months ago. I have campaigned in all 72 counties. I've gone to every corner of this state. I'm looking for the endorsement of the Wisconsin voters on April 1st. Outside help that comes is not something I control. It is expensive and it's difficult to get your message out on the airwaves to all the voters of Wisconsin.
Let me ask you about George Soros. Do you embrace his endorsement and his spending on your
campaign? I have had generous contributions that have gone to the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. The Democratic Party of Wisconsin has endorsed me and supported my candidacy. But let's talk about Elon Musk. Talk about somebody who's been dangerous, who's firing air traffic controllers, who's firing the people who are trying to figure out the avian flu issue that is causing the cost of eggs to increase so rapidly in Wisconsin. He has now spent over $10 million on my opponent's race. He has basically taken over Brad Schimmel's campaign. He's got paid canvassers who are knocking on doors, handing out flyers that say, support the Trump agenda, put Brad Schimmel on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. He is putting false ads out and deceptive ads that try to make me look like a more far-left liberal person than I have ever been in my life. And he's putting these untrue ads out on television. He is the one. This is unprecedented to see this kind of spending on a race.
There are new flyers coming out from groups tied to Elon Musk that are arriving to voters' mailboxes tonight that say conservative Brad Schimmel will support President Trump's agenda. Is that true?
I have no control over whatever any outside group does. I will enforce the law. I will apply the law the way the legislature has written it. If President Trump or anyone defies Wisconsin law and I end up with a case in front of me, I'll hold them accountable as I would anybody. In my courtroom, I have individuals come in that sometimes are supporters of me, sometimes are people that don't like me. It doesn't make any difference. I've had political cases in my civil courtroom. It makes no difference who's in front of me. In the courtroom, my personal views are irrelevant, and President Trump's personal views are irrelevant as well.
The debate turning to abortion and the cases before the High Court.
You believe the 1849 law is valid?
It was a validly passed law.
Today.
I don't believe that it reflects the will of the people of Wisconsin today.
Judge, do you believe that law is valid today, the 1849 law?
Well, Matt, this is an issue that's pending before the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The parties in those cases have filed briefs, they've made legal arguments, they've presented evidence in support of their decision, and I'm not in a position to weigh in at this point.
But judges don't make the law. As a judge, no judge or justice should be deciding this issue for the voters of Wisconsin. This issue belongs in their hands. And should it be decided by the voters, or should it be decided by 4 justices in the majority on the court? And if 4 justices on the majority in the court can make that decision for the voters, that decision can flip back and forth every time the majority flips. We have to let the voters make this decision. I've been clear on that.
So voters need to understand that this is a critical issue in this race. My opponent has said he believes the 1849 law in Wisconsin is valid law. He's trying to backpedal from that position now, and he said that he does not believe there's any constitutional right to abortion under the Wisconsin Constitution. That's the choice presented to the Wisconsin voters.
On that, do you believe there is a constitutional right to abortion in Wisconsin?
Again, I'm not going to take a position on that because that is an issue pending before the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
The 1849 law, those oral arguments were completed 5 months ago from yesterday. I don't know why the Supreme Court hasn't been able to issue that decision yet, but I think they're playing politics. They're waiting until after this election to keep the 1849 law a live issue. That 1849 law is going to be resolved by the Supreme Court long before I take the bench on August 1st.
The national influence on this race significant. The state's voter ID law also on the April 1st ballot, voters being asked whether to enshrine the law into the state constitution. Judge Crawford, you have argued against it and tried to block the law, even at one point comparing it to a poll tax. Judge Crawford, do you still believe that?
Well, look, I brought a lawsuit on behalf of the Nonpartisan League of Women Voters when that law was first passed. And when it was first passed, it was the strictest voter ID law in the country, and it left a lot of people behind. There were many registered voters in Wisconsin who were unable to vote because they simply could not obtain the ID that they needed. So I'm proud of the lawsuit, the litigation that we filed, because ultimately the Wisconsin Supreme Court, with a very conservative majority at that time, found that because the law required people to pay to get a voter's ID, they ordered the administration to make changes so people would no longer have to pay. And indeed, they said it was like a poll tax. And the legislature.
Agree that it's still a poll tax?
Well, no, because they removed that.
You have told us previously that you will not reveal how you'll vote on the constitutional amendment. I'm just curious, why don't voters deserve to know?
Well, I think that they can hear from politicians and legislators and people like that what their views are. I just don't think it's appropriate for a judge to weigh in and try to influence voters on something like that.
Judge Simrall, how will you vote on the constitutional amendment?
I want to start by saying when I'm on the bench, my personal or political views are utterly irrelevant, and they're utterly irrelevant in the Supreme Court race. But if you want to know how I'm going to vote yes, okay? Now, voter integrity laws are critically important. The legislature has a solemn responsibility to put those laws in place, and we should all expect as voters that those laws are going to be implemented the way they're passed, because the danger with vote fraud is you can't undo the vote. You could catch the perpetrator. You could lock them up in prison for decades, but you can't change that fraudulent vote they cast. And that waters down the honest vote of a legitimate voter. That can't happen.
You have once suggested that President Trump won Wisconsin in 2016 because the state had voter ID in place. Does Wisconsin's law favor Republicans and disenfranchise other voters?
You know, interestingly, in the lawsuits, they've never found that voter that's disenfranchised. You might have heard my client said, or my opponent said, her client was the League of Women Voters. They didn't find that client out there because that client, they can't find that person who can't get that free ID. So,
to the question, do you believe that the law favors Republicans and disenfranchises voters?
No. What the law does is it favors integrity.
If you missed Wednesday night's debate, we have it all online. Just head to WISN.com/upfront or the WISN 12 YouTube page.
Up next, the analysis. Republican strategist Bill McCoshen, Democrat Joe Zepecki standing by.